Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff After Hours. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. I'm a 27-year retired NYPD sergeant from Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And with me tonight, Mark took off because he's got a comedy show, is the very capable, very funny, very personable Phil Grimaldi. How you doing tonight, Phil?
Pretty good, Bill. Thank you for having me back.
It's great, man. You're one of the best substitute hosts on the planet. And whenever I can use you, I'll have you here. And we have an unbelievable guest, a blast from the past. Some of you old-time cops may know him, but it's Joe Cirillo. Joe was a 20-year veteran out of the 2-0, but more than just being a cop, he's a Korean War veteran, and he also made some bones in the show business world, both in security and as an actor. He worked for a while as Telly Savalas' bodyguard, but he did security. He was actually had a small part in The Godfather. And without further ado, let's introduce him. Joe Cirillo, welcome to Police Off the Cuff After Hours.
I'm glad to be here. Believe me, it's so
My
good to
God,
be here.
you know, we were talking. I won't tell the crowd how old you are, but you look fantastic.
Well, thank you.
He sure does, Bill. He sure does. He
Hey,
shot
that's in
me
my
with that
book.
one.
I put the Fountain of Youth in the book. When you finish reading, you'll understand it.
Well, there's your book. I mean, you
okay.
don't look that much different. We for you people listening, we have a copy of his book, An Offer I Couldn't Refuse, on the screen, From the NYPD to Hollywood. Joe Cirillo. And I mean, God, you on the Upper West Side looking like that back in the day, the women must have been diving through the windows of the radio car.
That was back in 1977. So
wow, you're looking good.
Yeah.
You're looking good. And here's another one.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's me in the 2-0.
They must have been throwing panties through the window.
In fact, that's my first headshots. You know, I did one of the cops in the precinct was a photographer. He took those photos, so I saved a lot of bucks.
Wow,
that was my first headshot for movie business.
Hey, Joe, that is a true testament of life after the job, between your 20-year career and now that book and everything else you did, which we're going to go through, I'm sure. But that's a true testament when people say, is there life after the job? I think you're proof.
I really can't complain. I had a good life, really. Thank you. It was
God
great.
bless you.
Yeah, it's been good. And right from the time I retired, I shouldn't say that. I should say from being a cop in the 20th precinct and right till present day. Great. Everything was great. I met so many people, befriended a lot of actors, actresses. Who wants better than that? I mean, I had the best of all. Yeah.
Well, you know, back in the day, you came on in 1957.
Right.
And so you were on from 57 to 1977, but the 2-0 precinct on the Upper West Side, which covers 59th Street to 86th Street from Central Park West to Riverside Drive, was a rocking place back then, right?
Well, no, what I'm saying is actually in that time, it was from 66th to 86th. And also it was Manhattan.
That was before co-terminality, right?
Co-terminality.
Yeah, and in addition, it was Manhattan South. We have Manhattan South, Manhattan North. Then it was Manhattan East and West. It was totally different. Yeah.
Wow.
But
back then, as far as drugs, the big drug was heroin, right?
Yeah, they had all kinds of problems, especially in the around Columbus Avenue and the 84th Street in Amsterdam Avenue, in that area. All drugs. It was really bad area.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we were talking before, you worked with some old time hairbags that I knew because I worked in the 2-0 precinct from 1985 to like 88. Then I left for street crime.
And you worked with my old partner,
Vinny Lupinacci, who became the community affairs guy. And I said, Vinny Lupinacci, I love the guy. He was a sweet guy.
He's a great guy.
He could pick your pocket and pat you on the back at the same time.
And he loved to eat.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
That sounds like the Italian in him.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. He was great. And then, of course, I had Jerry Giorgio, who you also knew, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the real top detectives in the department. Yeah. So I had really good partners. Like I said, I enjoyed the 20th precinct. It was great.
Well, you grew up in the South Bronx, right?
Yes, I grew up in the 4-0 precinct. I actually lived we started 138th Street, then I lived on 145th, and finally 148th Street. So it's all in the confines of the 4-0.
Well, I read your book, and you said as a kid you liked to pitch pennies, and when
Yes.
you pitch pennies, when you won, you would immediately go to the movies.
Right,
'Cause
exactly.
You were a
Yeah.
huge movie fan, right?
Yeah. Oh, my sister, my older sister, took me to movies. I must have been about 5, and I remember I loved the movies. Every chance I got, I'd go to the movies. Like you said, we'd pitch pennies, play bankers and brokers. I slipped the pennies in my shoe or in my back pocket. As soon as I said I got enough for the movie, I had a nickel or a dime, whatever the price was, and then I said I'm broke, and then I'd run to the movies. So I was a big fan of the movies. Yes, yes.
And that's what inspired you to try to get involved in it once you became a cop, right?
Yeah. Well, that was luck. That was fortunate that, I met a lot of people. I was assigned to the Museum of Natural History, and right across the street is the Beersford Apartments. And in that building, Stephen Eady lived there, Abe Burrows, Alan Funt, Leonard Lyons. There were so many stars there, and Mike Nichols, big Broadway producer. Director.
He was married to Diane Sawyer, right?
Yes, he passed away a couple of years ago. Yeah, but anyway, he's the one that really got me my shot in the movies. Yeah, what he actually did was I used to hang out. It was sort of my coop. When I went to meal or anything, or if I wanted to take a little break, I went into his office. So we became good friends. And when The Godfather came out, he said, how would you like to be an actor, work in the movies? I said, I like it, but I'm not an actor. He says, don't worry, we'll make you one. And he set up an interview with Paramount Pictures. I went down in uniform, and I was in. Her last name was Eastman. I don't recall her first name, but she interviewed me, and she said, "What makes you think you can act?" I says, "Hey, I'm a cop. We're doctors. We're lawyers. We're psychiatrists. We do everything." She says, "You're right." And then they gave me a little shot in the Godfather. And so that's why I pulled the book and off. I couldn't refuse.
That's the name of your book. Yeah.
Yes.
There it is.
And that was the phrase in The Godfather,
Yeah.
So I thought it was appropriate.
Hey, Joe, what part did you play in The Godfather?
Here's the best. I did a couple of scenes. I had lines. You won't see it in the movie. They never put it in the movie. Okay. But you'll see me in certain scenes. Now, since 1972, 73, I get residuals almost every month from The Godfather till today.
Wow.
I'm still getting checks. Every time it's shown, I get a check.
Your son said in the live chat, he said, Dad's using old police terms. Coop. Many of the younger cops will not know the term. We know that. We know that term, the coop.
Yeah, the coop was where we hung out. You want to take a break. Of course, the shoe flies were after the shoe flies, but you know who they were. They were after the cop that was off beat or off post. Yeah.
When the department would have a list of corruption-prone locations, you'd look at them and you say, "I didn't even know about these. Now that I do, I'm going to go there."
Hey, we actually ran away from them sometimes.
That's right.
The guys that were cooping, that's how they started the rings, right? When you did a ring tour, you had to do a ring every hour because they caught guys
right. That's right.
I was a transit cop for a year. In transit, they had these rooms that were secreted back in the tunnels in the transit authority. Beautiful rooms, and guys would take a little break there.
Yeah,
but I think that's how the ring started with guys got caught cooping.
Yeah, well, we had to fly every time we second tour. Now, flying, you know what it is, but the public don't know what it means. But it means they're sending you to another precinct to work instead of your own. A lot of times it was the embassies on the 19th precinct. We used to go to Central Park, go to Harlem in the 2-8, and also 3-4 precinct. There was a park there where one kid was killed, so they always had police up in that area, and we were sent there. And I remember once I was with another guy, and the shoe fly came, and he's chasing us all over the place. We hid out, and he never caught us. So,
Joe, that's another cop term that people might not know. Shoe fly. That's the captain whose job it was to supervise a division, basically, right?
Exactly.
And a ring, let me explain a ring. A ring is when you're doing a tour, an 8-hour tour on a midnight, you'd have to come in and physically report to the desk every hour or by phone and let them know that you weren't sleeping, that you were still awake.
When you were assigned your post, you got a number, 27, 32. So 32 minutes past the hour you called in. If your number was 17 minutes after the hour you called in. That was so they could give you an assignment and also to find out if you're still there and also, that everything's okay. So that was the ring. And in those days we had nothing. We didn't have what they have today. No radios, no bulletproof vests. The only weapon we had was the nightstick and the gun, of course.
And your brain, you had your brain.
Oh, wow. And how you really needed.
So you had to have a good line of shit to talk yourself out of a lot of stuff back then, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah. No, but like I said, they were good days. In fact, the very first time I was sent to the 2-0, a midnight tour, and it was November 24th, I think it was, and it was the night they're blowing up the balloons for the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Oh, I used to love that. I'd take my kids to see that.
Yeah, and it was great. Here I am. I'm there, and I'm watching them blow up the balloons, and everybody's walking around. It was like a lot of festivities going on. People are enjoying themselves. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, for the
good.
most part, the people in the 2-0 like the police. It's
definitely.
a very liberal area, but they like the police, though.
Yes, I when you were assigned the post, I guess you know that. And what I did, I went to every store keeper. I let them know who I was, and after a while, they became my friends. Really, even the people on the street, the mothers of children, and everything. When I crossed the kids, we had one guy. His name was Al Shepard. Did you know Al Shepard by any chance?
That name sounds familiar.
Okay, he was in the emergency service.
Right.
He's probably the most decorated, one of the most decorated cops. He became a cop because of me. That's what he said. He always said, Joe Cirillo, I followed in his footsteps. Yeah, but he was a great guy. Yeah.
That's fantastic. We have Lieutenant Peter Pranzo from Harlem Raiders fame. He has a book out. Yeah. He was a legendary lieutenant from the 3-2, and then he went to street crime. And he has a book out, Harlem Raiders, and he's been waiting years for them to option that for a TV show or a movie too.
Oh, wow.
It's such a tough business to get.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I worked on my book for quite a while. I didn't have anybody help me. Everything I wrote myself. In the end, it was really my son, Dennis, who's retired. He was a lieutenant. He helped me clean it up a little, and he's the one that put it out there, and he's the one that published it for me, self-publishing. So I got to give him all the credit in the world. Yeah. But,
well, he's had a good pop to teach him the right way,
Actually, he followed in my footsteps, really. I was
great.
I was in headquarters and operations, chief of field service. Then I worked for the commission. I did a lot of things for the commission. All the chiefs. I had one of the best jobs. And my son actually ended up in police headquarters, the same thing, operations and DCPI. So he had a good tour. Yeah.
So obviously Joe Lisi because you were at the police off the cuff night at Bordeaux.
Yeah, my son Dennis was one of his sergeants.
Right. But Joe Lisi is probably the most successful cop actor in the history of the department.
Yeah, he's on everything.
Very well. Yes. Yeah. I did pretty good. But Joe Lisi, Joe Lisi's a good actor. He's a natural, really.
Right. He's a legitimate actor. And there's a new guy. There's a young guy now, just retired, a sergeant. His name's Michael Devine. And he was just in a movie with Nicole Kidman.
Oh, okay.
And he's a hell of an actor. He's done a lot of stuff too. And he's got some voice.
He didn't always play a cop too. He played, I think I saw him in a couple of things where he played like a wise guy and stuff. So he's pretty versatile, Joe,
Well, he would play a lawyer. He'd play a lawyer a lot too. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Law and Order, I think he was a lawyer.
I either played a hood or a cop. Most of the time as a cop.
There's a fine line between the two, Joe. You know what I mean? There's always a fine line there.
My big great thing with Kojak.
Basically, Joe, what you're describing about the police department, there's a saying, and they say, I had a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. And
I think that you really described totally that. Right. Totally right. Yeah.
But Joe, you must have been the keeper of the contract too, because you had these connections. Probably every cop and his brother and his family was saying, "Hey, could you get me a part in this movie? Could you do this for me?"
I got Lupinacci and his family. I got them working in The Godfather too.
That's
and a couple
amazing.
of other cops. Yeah, I helped them out. Yeah, and then I did a lot of modeling, and I had cops in the precinct do modeling with me. So
Yeah, I read in your book you got in trouble with your wife one time when you
Oh.
got a little too friendly with the
wow,
model.
and how
She was like naked laying on your lap on the
She
couch or
was.
something. I don't
Yeah,
know how you explain that one away.
that
It was a love scene. It was a
That's
love
it.
scene.
Hey, I was just acting.
That's
Hey,
what
Exactly, right.
they told me to report to this apartment house. I'd done many modeling jobs. So when I got there, the guy says, all right, I was wearing a suit and tie. He says, you're going to go in the room. She's going to take off your jacket and then take pictures of that. Then it ended up, she's on the couch and she has a towel on. And I chest up, nothing on. Okay. So I lay on top of her. And
That's what you told your wife.
They tuck in the towel, and when it came out in the magazine, it looked like the two of us were nude. And my sister gives me up. She saw it in the magazine, and she went to my wife. She says, "You let your husband do this?" That was
my God.
and I kept explaining it. No, I said her mother was there. The photographer, the female. She said, "Yeah," and the priest was there.
That's right. He probably made you see a priest after that one.
Yeah,
Confession on that one on
yeah.
confession. Yeah.
One time I had one modeling job where I walk in and there's a young girl there, and he said, all right, here's what we're going to do. You're going to kiss her for a full hour. And that's all we did was kiss for a full hour. Never told my wife about that one.
That's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I bet your jaw was pretty happy on your lips.
1 hour. Just taking a breath or two and then go right back into it. All different passionate kisses for an hour. And I got paid for it.
Oh, my God.
Well, let me ask something. When you did a modeling job like that, what was the pay like?
Oh, like they like $100 for an hour. If it went over, you get $200.
And back then, that was good money, right?
Oh yeah, $100 an hour. Yeah, and I did a couple of covers, like private detective magazines. They're in the book, I believe. Yeah, I did a couple of covers. So
we get calls all the time now. I know Phil does, and I do, by these TV shows that do these like homicide recreations.
Right.
But they're so used to using cops, and they don't mention any money till you say, whoa, wait a second. I get 500 a day plus expenses. All of a sudden, they're not interested anymore. For the first 10 minutes, they're your best friend. Then as soon as you mention money, because cops sell themselves short. And a lot of them, they do this stuff for nothing. And so they're so used to.
It's true.
The guy tried to get me, would you write this up for us? I said, yeah, as soon as I have a contract in front of me. Yeah. And then he kept trying to I'll talk to my people. Yeah, talk to your people, send the contract, and then we'll do all the talking you want.
Yeah, right. Well, you know Sonny Grasso. You guys heard of Sonny Grasso.
Yeah.
Sure, of course. Met him many
Sonny
times.
became a producer. I worked for him a few times. And what he used to do is call in cops. They go to his office. He'd give them $100 bill and say, tell me your story. And if he liked the story, they made a screenplay out of it. And most of his shows were based on cop stories. That's what he did.
Look, every cop that does 20, 25 years, 30 years has some unbelievable stories.
Exactly.
And, but your best stories you should keep to yourself because no one's paying you for them,
Yeah, I have 12 screenplays that I wrote,
Wow.
And it's some from things that I was involved in. Others just made them up, or heard stories. But I have 12 screenplays. So anybody out there wants a good screenplay, hey, get a hold of me. I got it. Yeah.
Hey, Joe, me and Bill met. There was a television show called The Perfect Murder that Kevin Kaufman and Rick Torelli, who's a retired detective as well, they had this show where they would recreate, murder cases.
Yes.
Bill had did it a few times. And my first day on the set, I showed up. I was early. I thought I was in the wrong place. Anyhow, Bill comes and I said, you got to be with this thing. I recognized he was a cop right away, And I said, listen, I'm a little nervous that, what's this all about? He goes, Phil, just follow my lead. We're going to just act like we were, interviewing people just like you would do on a job. And before, we did a few scenes and then I went on to do like 3 episodes. I think Bill did about what? You do about 10?
I did 6 of them. Yeah.
6. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Hey, You're in show business too.
Yeah, it was really a great experience. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the cameras, the microphones,
Oh,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
tape on the floor, and it was like, wow, this is like real acting, And
Yeah, and all the starlets that were throwing their panties at you, all of that stuff.
yeah, don't tell my wife. My wife watches this show.
Well, that's a
She's
joke,
not supposed to
obviously,
know
because
about those things.
that never happened, but it happened
Yeah.
to Joe,
No.
I think.
I never
The funny thing about it was there would be extras that that they had these little. If they had like one sentence, they were like, "Oh my God, I got a line." Meanwhile, we were in it. You're on a show for a full hour talking, and the camera's on you. It was really a lot more exposure than most actors get. And like their whole lifetime, maybe a 10-year career, 20-year career, or whatever.
Notice, Joe, in the beginning of the show, they didn't give us a script. They just let us. They tell us the situation. And they let us improv it.
Great.
And that was great. It was easy, because you're just doing what you do on your job. But then as the show got better and better and bigger audience, they all of a sudden were like, no, you got to learn the lines. We were like, oh, shit. But I'm talking about they'd give us a script of, we'd have tons of lines and we'd have like 3 days to learn it, right?
Yeah, right. I had a situation like that where I got one of the leads in a movie that was filming in the Carolinas. And I studied my lines. I was in front of the mirror acting it out. And I had to tape the recording and I was doing the lines against the tape. And then I flew down to North Carolina. First day of shooting, we get up there and he says, all right, this is the scene we're doing. And I start doing it and he goes, oh, cut. He said, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm doing my lines. He says, what lines? He says, that's not the lines. I says, yeah. He says, oh, we changed the script. And then from then on, I had to sit with the writer who gave me the lines, and I had to learn the lines and shoot the scene. So it was very difficult because I still had the old lines in me, and I'm mixing them up. But
I know it takes a lot of time to memorize lines, but once you get your brain to start doing that, it gets easier.
It's true.
I took acting class, and I did this one monologue that Al Pacino does in that football movie. I forget the name of it.
Oh, okay.
But it's a long monologue where he's talking to the team.
Yeah, they always want a monologue. You're right.
Yeah, and I was like, and it was a like 2-3 page monologue, and I was like, holy shit, I actually memorized this thing,
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to do it, but it definitely helps your brain when you do that.
Well,
Bill, I don't know if you remember, but that happened to me and you when we were doing the scene on that in the case with the cigarette. Remember when I was smoking a cigarette? You were supposed to be smoking a cigarette, and you were supposed to be feeding me the lines, and I was supposed to be answering. Or it was actually backwards.
Right, and then they switched it on us. Yeah.
They says, no, you got the cigarette, so we had to switch our lines, but we got through it. We did it in a couple of scenes, I guess. But that's a little nerve-wracking.
But you know what? It's totally different for stars. I was picked up in the series I Shied. It was about Chief Seaman.
Joe Don Baker, who was the walking tall. He was walking tall.
Yes, the greatest guy. And I played his driver, Detective Malfitano. And Joe couldn't remember his lines for anything. He had his lines on the dashboard when we were driving. He had 2 guys with cue cards standing alongside the camera so he can read his lines. He never could remember his line. He remembered them, but he needed the help of the cue card. Yeah, and yet if you make a mistake, they're all over you. Hey, what come on. But they could do it,
I read that one thing where you were doing a movie with what's his name? This muscle-bound guy who in Death Wish, Charles Bronson.
Oh, Charlie Bronson.
And you were supposed to be leaning into the radio car, and he had to throw his hat in there or something.
Yeah,
you were in his way, and he called you a dummy or something.
Yeah, an effing dummy.
Effing dummy. That's right. You were a little pissed, right?
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing about it was I worked in the first Death Wish. I believe that was that was the second one, third. I worked in a couple of them. But anyway, the director told me, here's the best part. I'm there because I have a role. I'm a cop who's shot in a hallway. So now I'm standing on the side with a bunch of movie cops, all in uniform. So the director comes out and he comes over and he says, you come over here. And I walk over and he says, I want you to do. I said, oh, I can't do that. He says, I'm the director. You do what I want. I said, oh, okay. So he says, the car is going to pull up. Mr. Bronson's going to come out of the car. he's going to get out of the car. And once he gets out of the car, you lean in and talk to the driver. So we did it. I did it that way. Cut. Let's do it again. We do it again. The same thing. Car pulls up. He drives out. I walk, lean in. Cut. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? I said, that's what you told me to do. He said, no, he's taking off his hat and he's going to throw it in the car. I said, you never told me that. And that's when they called me an effing dummy. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, from that, Charles Bronson was my favorite actor. And after that, I says, I don't even want to look at this guy. That's how bad I felt. Yeah, but then working with Telly and Paul Pacerni, they were his friends. And they told me, oh, Joe, he's the greatest guy in the world. And I never got a chance to see him and, say, hey, you remember what happened? But after that, I said, I understood.
I read somewhere he was almost like a liberal. He wasn't like, everybody thought he was pro-cop and everything. Charles Bronson, I'm talking about. Was he liberal?
Yeah, I really don't know because the only thing I did scenes with him. Other than that, I didn't know his private life,
Yeah.
I wasn't with him in where I had a conversation.
I tell you, he was really jacked back then. He was so muscular. Was he? Was he a roid monster back then, or what?
He was. Well, you saw the movies I saw, and
he was ripped back in the day, and I was like, wow, how did, that was in the '60s. I mean, I didn't know the roids they had back then were like swine hormones,
Well, was it like him and Telly met on the Dirty Dozen? Is that how?
Oh yeah. Well, they when the actors they become friends from the different movies they work in,
sure.
And I guess they became friends from that. But they would see each other. They'd have lunch together. I remember once I'm in the hotel with Telly and we're having breakfast, and who's there with us? Jack Palance. Yeah. And I was talking to him and everything, and say, "Oh, this is great. Here I am. I'm sitting with the biggest guys in Hollywood."
Those are big name superstars, boy.
Yeah, yeah.
Joe, when you were in this running with these people, did they accept you as one of them, or you were always the outsider?
No. That's the strange thing. For some reason, they all took a liking to me. I was one of their buddies. Telly treated me like forget it. I mean, he was an incredible man. And the way he played the role of Kojak, that was really him. He's doing himself, but he was the sweetest man. That's one guy. Tops, real tops. Yeah.
Joe, we're gonna go to a quick commercial, and then we're gonna get into your relationship with Telly Savalas, and all of that stuff. Because
I want to hear about that Kojak. That was a great.
That's a really fascinating thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Any of you folks getting sick and tired of the high taxes of New York, the crazy politics, and you want to move down south? Well, Carol Waters is a realtor down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. For 20 years, she worked as a bartender at Fitzpatrick's Hotel in Midtown. Her husband, Rob Mayen, was on the NYPD. He rolled over to the fire department. Together now, they are a team of real estate salespeople down in Myrtle Beach, and they work for the Beach Realty Group. So if you're looking for a rental or buy a house or a condo down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, give Carol Waters a call, 914-261-6681, or you can email her at carolwaterssellsmyrtlebeach@gmail.com. You won't be sorry. They're two of the most knowledgeable people on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina real estate. You ready for your commercial, Phil?
Yes, I am. There he is, Joe Murray, attorney at law, jmurraylaw.com. Joe is not only an experienced NYPD retired police officer, he's also an attorney, so he knows the law from both ends. You can get Joe at jmurraylaw.com and his website, jmurraylaw.com. He's out in Great Neck, but he handles all criminal cases in the New York area. You could also get him at 646-838-1702. That's Joe Murray Law. He's an attorney, jomurraylaw.com. Great supporter of Police Off the Cuff.
He sure is. And he has a mean left hook. He used to fight on the PBA boxing team. So you don't want to mess with Joe Murray.
He's got some great stories when it comes to the boxing, boy.
He sure does. He really should be on the can of Dinty Moore stew because he looks like that guy with the beard and everything, right?
He's really good because we did obviously a lot of segments with Joe, myself, Bill, and I did it on another podcast with him. And he's very articulate. And I threw a couple of things at him, like law stuff, and he came right back. I'm sure he's a great attorney. He's very experienced, and he's a great attorney.
Very good. He's also been on several episodes of The Perfect Murder too. All of these great people. Perfect Murder, right?
Yeah. Perfect Murder turned out some good people, huh?
You're right. You're right. Yeah, totally right.
Yeah.
So, Joe, let's get into how you met Telly Savalas.
Well, as you know, I was an actor from 72 on. I joined Screen Actors Guild. I was working a lot of movies as cops, and I befriended the head of the movie TV unit, became friends with the guys then. Anyway, in 1976, the Kojak series, which was shot in California, and they decided they wanted to come to New York and shoot a full season in New York. Prior to that, all they did was come in for a week or two and take what they call stock shots. They had Telly go into a grocery store, come out, go into a building, come out, driving up this street, and then they insert it with the shots in California. So they decided to come to New York, and then they said, Telly's so popular now, we're going to need somebody as sort of a bodyguard with him. So they went to the police department. The producers went to, I don't know if it was the commissioner's office or wherever, and they said, this is what we're looking for. We want to get a cop who can do security for Telly and also, know something about movies. So they said, we got the right guy for you, and they assigned me. So I was assigned to that, and I stayed with them a whole year. And after that one whole year with him, it was incredible because, like I said, I was getting paid. I was working 5 days a week with them. I was getting paid from the department. I was getting paid from the Universal. So it was really great. I was making a lot of money, and Telly was the greatest guy. I mean, incredible person.
Joe, did he share his lollipops with you?
No, well, we had him, when I went there to work. He offered me, in fact, he said to me, that was my second big offer, the offer I couldn't refuse. When we finished the New York shoot, he said, Joe, when can you retire? I says, I can get out in 2 months. He says, you come out to California, you got a job. I said, okay, I'll take you up on that. And that's what I did. I went out, when I retired, I went out to the coast, and Telly put me to work, and I was doing, I was the technical advisor out there, and I was getting all the roles, any roles, small roles. In fact, I have never paid, I made a ton of money in this business. I have never paid an agent 10%. I made the money on my own. All the roles I had, even in series I shied, I got a co-starring role with Joe Don Baker. And I got it myself just to help out with the with producers and so on. I did everything on that show. So it was very, very, very rewarding. In fact,
you also said something like being a technical advisor. Sometimes the director wouldn't always listen to you, and the scene would come out screwed up.
Oh, yeah, we had that. In fact, we had one where we were shooting on, I think it was Lafayette and in the Bowery section. And it was a hostage situation. So I read the script. I used to sit in the production office. We all were there, and we, if you were the technical advisor, you said this has to be changed, that has to be changed. If you're wardrobe, you say this is what they have to work. But we all work together. So now I got this script about a hostage situations. So I went to police headquarters. I talked to the 2 hostage negotiators, the big ones, and I said, "How would we do this scene?" So he told me, I was there maybe an hour and a half.
And you spoke to the Frank Bowles.
Frank Bowles. And
the legendary captain.
Frankie Bowles.
He's the one that started the hostage.
Yes, right. It was him. So what happened was now we're going over to do the scenes, and I'm setting up guys, and then he starts, no, I want the guy here, went there. And I said to him, I said, no, you can't do that. He says, don't tell me what I can do. I'm the director. I said, okay, right. Okay, then you do it. He did it. The next day, we went to to look at the dailies, look at what they shot. The producers came over to me and they started yelling, what the hell was that? Who did that scene? And I explained to them, I didn't do that. I said, he said he's the director and he wanted to do it. He took me to the director, stopped the shooting, and he said, if Joe Cirillo says the scene is wrong, you don't shoot it. or else he comes to us. And that director never talked to me again. Like,
yeah,
it was
of
my
course
fault.
not. But
Yeah.
you know something, you got to look out for yourself too, right?
Yeah, because it was really wrong. A lot of things. Like one time they had in the script, Telly Savalas is chewing out a 4-star chief. I said, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen.
They said, never happened. They said, well, can we take a little poetic license and do it? I said, no way. Everybody even the civilians would know that.
Of course.
A lieutenant.
Anybody in the military would know that. Anybody that was ever
of course,
anywhere would know that.
4-star chief.
Yeah,
well, yeah, if you looked at it, he was a lieutenant. Half the time he was telling the captain in the squad what to do, if you noticed that.
But you know something, even on NYPD Blue, the detectives always go into like the door first, and ESU is there. And everyone knows if ESU is there, you stay behind them. They're going through the door first.
Right,
and they always have Sipowicz going through with this little 5-shot chief.
Right.
And you're like, what the hell are they doing?
It's true. It's true.
You know?
It's funny.
ESU follows them, right?
It's funny you brought up NYPD Blue, Bill, because I went to Hollywood. I went with Bill Clark. He was the executive producer.
Bill Clark was,
And there was a few times when I was present during scenes and they would say cut, and he would say, listen, you're not doing it right. You got to do it this way. And the director would say, well, you know what, for the film, he goes, well, if you want to do it wrong, that's fine with me. But the right way to do it is this. And a couple of times he would win, and sometimes the director would get his way,
But you know what everyone always loves, Phil? They love reading Miranda. And you and I know that makes you sick. Yeah. When they lock them up, they're always like, you have the right to it. We all know that never, ever, ever happens.
As they're putting handcuffs on, they're reading. I'm like,
right. And it's so sickening. But the Hollywood directors, they love that.
They love that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you an incident we had. You know Eddie Egan, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
French Connection.
Well, we both worked in Eyeshide. He played Chief Parks. I played Detective Malfitano. So for that show, he was the technical advisor for detectives, and I was for the street scenes, the cop. So anyway, there was one incident where one of the stars shoots an actor, and he falls on an escalator, and the escalator is taking him to the top. So now the detective who's there, has to run up to the top of the stairs and wait for him to come up. So he said, how would I shoot this scene? I said, look, there's so many different ways. I explained different ways. I said, I remember one of my partners, he shot and killed a guy, and he left the scene. We didn't know where the hell he went. And he ended up waking up a priest in the middle of the night and telling him, you got to hear my confession. And that bothered him so much. And he actually died of a heart attack at 32. So I mentioned that. Then I mentioned a couple other things. I told him one incident I was involved in. And then I mentioned also, I said, and if it was Eddie Egan, he'd probably kick him and say, get the hell out of here, something like that. So he decided to do it with the way the first one, where emotionally he was shaking like a leaf. So the director said, yeah, we'll do it that way. We shot it. The next day, the producer comes on the set, stops the shooting. He said, I want to see Joe Cirillo and Harvey Laidman, the director. Takes us out in the hall. He reamed me. He said, Eddie Egan said, no cop would ever do that. No cop would ever do that. I says, oh, wait a minute. I says, you don't know. It says, as a cop, I don't know myself what's going to happen when I'm with a gun and a guy in front of me. So he said, well, that's it. He says, you're finished as a technical advisor, and your job as an actor is also in jeopardy. He said, now get back to the set. And he left. So I got back to the set, and I was all upset, I guess. And Joe Don Baker said to me, what's the matter, Joe? And I explained it. He says, what? He left the set. He went to the producer, and he said, if Joe Cirillo's off of it, I'm out of the series. And he reinstated me right then and there.
Wow.
Joe Don Baker. And that's a true story. True story.
But, there are cops that would get super upset at a shooting like you're talking about. Of course. And then there's cops that, they could go have a milkshake.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
It's just
no one knows how to react.
Right, different personalities.
All of us. I mean,
I was in a couple of shootings. I was in a couple of shootings, and two shootings, and both times the guys were shooting me first. I didn't feel too bad to be afterwards. I mean, obviously the heart's pumping, your adrenaline and all of that.
Yeah, of course.
But I didn't feel, had I killed a guy, I might have gone to a priest at some time and maybe made a confession, but I just felt like they were trying to kill me. And I just wanted to, I do what I had to do.
Well, the situation there was that he was driving the sergeant on Riverside Drive in 83rd Street about 1 o'clock in the morning. And the cab driver is parked on the side and is blinking the lights. And all of a sudden he sees the cab driver jump into the street and he says, he just stuck me up. And so the guy starts running in the park. And my partner, Lenny, he runs over and he yells, stop, halt. He fires one shot and he got the guy in the back of the head, DOA. And and then he got shook up. He, saw the body and then he disappeared. He went to like I said, to the priest. So, it's the person himself,
Could you back then shoot a fleeing felon? Because that used to be the law. You used to be allowed to.
Yeah.
Oh, right. It was totally different then.
Yeah. Now forget it. Now you can't shoot a guy shooting at you.
Yeah.
That guy would be in some trouble today to shot him.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Really? A group of us that had a carpool from Bellmore into New York in the precinct. And one of the guys, and it happened in Seaford, he was off duty. No, he's retired. And there was a stick up. I think it was in a pharmacy. And he ended up shooting the guy, killed him. And it was like a hero. Meanwhile, he had to go to trial. He went through hell. He says, I'm never carrying my gun again. And none of us, I still don't carry my gun. I got it locked away. I said, you can get in trouble today with just using your gun.
Well,
legally.
There was a guy a couple of years ago in the 2-3, and he was a retired lieutenant, and he was driving some Wall Street CEO, and a guy stuck up a pharmacy, and he can't, because he comes out and he's shooting it out with the uniformed cops. And this retired lieutenant from a pretty far distance shoots the guy in the head. Wow. And kills the guy. And the guy he killed was a real bad guy. He had murdered 2 people in the East River houses. And his boss gave him a lot of shit. He was like, why'd you have to get involved in a shooting? You're a retired lieutenant. He was like, hey,
I know. It's
Joe,
tough out there today.
Joe, I respect what you said that you don't carry it. I was in a shootout like a month out of the police academy, and I have a gun glued to me just about everywhere I go.
We'll see.
And the reason I'm retired 18 years, and the reason I carry it today is obviously, like you said, you can get in trouble like that. You could be right and you're wrong. But I feel like if I'm in a mall or a supermarket or Lowe's or Costco, wherever I am, and God forbid there's some maniac with one of those AK-47s and I got a shot, I think I would want to take it and maybe be able to neutralize the threat. I'm still a pretty good shot, and I think I'm pretty safe with it. So that's what's in the back of my head. I'm not carrying it to stop any kind of,
No,
listen,
I know.
Plus, Joe, he may also have to go out and do some work. He may get a job that he has to have that pistol with him.
Yeah, that's good.
Dr. Stephen Waschel, thank you so much for the $14.99 super chat. You're the man. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Here we are with Joe Cirillo, a cop really from another era when we talk about it. But it's amazing when he brought up some of the people in his book that I actually knew some of them, and maybe I'm an old bastard too. I don't know, but I came on in 85. Joe Cirillo came on in 1957. My God. That seems
3 years before I was born, by the way.
Wow, that's incredible. But look at the guy though. If I could look like he does, man, at his age, I won't even say how old he is, because we had Joe Pistone on a couple of weeks ago. In fact, he's coming on again Monday with Bob Starkman.
We're having lunch together.
Oh, that's great. But the funny thing was, I gave it up how old he was, and he was a little bit pissed at me.
I don't mind.
He was like, he gave me that look. What are you telling everyone how old I am? I was like,
my son Dennis, who's retired, is 66. So
hey, that's great.
You can guess my age if you want.
Peter Pranzo, Lieutenant Peter Pranzo from the Harlem Raiders fame. Thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. We appreciate it. And I said Pete's got a book waiting to be a movie too. But this stuff. But one of the problems right now, even with like Randy Jurgensen, Circle of Six, what an amazing story. But with the anti-cop attitude now of the public and Hollywood, you don't know if a great story like that will ever get told, because a lot of these Hollywood producers, they're in the defund the police crowd,
It's true. It's true. There was a period not too long ago, in fact, that I was told, don't even put your books out now because everybody's so anti-cop that nobody's going to look at it. You're not going to be hired for any jobs or anything. So I just laid low. That's it. But then I said, I've been working on this autobiography and I wanted to get it out there. I didn't intend to hurt anybody. I don't think I hurt anyone in it. I kept it clean, and everything you read in that is the
No one's
truth.
going to read it if you kept it too clean.
Well, I might be a little here and there.
Got some. I like the scene about you painting the naked girl in art class. He took art class,
Right.
I read
That's
all
true.
the good parts of the book,
That's right. And that was a big help for me. I got out of the Army and I was in CCNY. We got drafted. And instead of going back to college, I went to this, it was called a cartoon and an illustrating school. And they changed it to the SVA, School of Visual Arts. And I studied there and I did pretty well there. And from that, they brought me down to headquarters, to do the composite drawings. And then later on, they pulled me in because of my artistic talent. They had me working for the commissioner, for all the chiefs. I had the best job in the world. It really worked out fine for me.
That's fantastic.
But,
Event New York City, thank you so much for the $15 super chat. I think that's your son. Thank you so much.
Who's that, Dennis?
Yeah, $15. You guys are keeping us in business. I feel like I got my SAG card.
Yeah. And once I'll tell you a story how I stopped the acting. Actually, I was with the I Shied series and we were going to be canceled. Now my wife let me stay out there. She came out occasionally. She was growing the kids. I was out in California. And so now the I Shied, they came and said, we're canceling the show in 2 weeks. So I called my wife and I said, they're canceling this show and I'll be home. She says, thank God you're coming home. So I said, okay. So now in the interim, the head of casting at Universal, he comes in on the set. I thought he was going to see Joe Don Baker. He comes over to me and he said, 2 pilots for me. I says, for me? He says, yeah. And Joe Don Baker said, oh, this is your big break, Joe. And the other actor was the lead. He says, Joe, this is it. You got it. I says, no, I don't know. I better call my wife. They says, what are you, nuts? He says, you're going to be a star. I says, no, I got to call my wife. So I got on the phone and I told her, honey, they want me to do 2 pilots, so I don't know if I'm going to come home. Dead silence. And then I hear, you come home or else. And that was it. And I gave it up.
Oh, I'm going to make him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Yeah, that's another offer. Yeah. Anyway.
There he is thinking about all the opportunities because he was told you come home. You don't stay in California.
Yeah. And what happened then? So I started a security business. And that turned very prosperous because we had Frank Sinatra as a client. And I was with De Niro, Pacino, Streisand, Tom Hanks. I'm the biggest stars in Hollywood. Here I am.
How did you like working for the chairman of the board?
Frank Sinatra was great. Really?
In
fact, I opened the book with a story on him. I guess you read that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the story when they woke you up in the middle of the night with Sinatra in the hotel?
Yeah.
Can you tell us that one?
Yeah. Well, you want to hear it? I'll tell you. Did you read it?
I didn't read it. No, I read.
Oh, what happened was,
but didn't give the details.
That's my opening story. What happened actually? I get a call 2:00 in the morning. I wake up and I say, "Well, who's this?" I pick up the phone. It's my guy who's doing security at the Waldorf, and that's where Sinatra. He's with Sinatra. So I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Joe, you're not going to believe this." I said, "What's the matter?" He said, Mr. Sinatra came out of his room totally nude, naked, and he went to the elevator and pushing the button. He says, I said, "What'd you do?" He says, I ran over to him. I said, "Mr. Sinatra, what do you do?" And he was incoherent. I guess he was losing it then. So I said, "Well, what happened? What did you do?" He said, "I took off my jacket. I wrapped it around. I brought him back in the room and I put him in bed." I said, "Anybody see this?" "No, Joe, it's 2:00 in the morning, whatever it was." I saw her. I says, "When my supervisor comes in, you tell him, but don't spread this anywhere." So then I'm about to hang. He says, "Joe, you're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He says, "He had a beer can hanging there." I said, "A beer can?" Referring to his manhood. Yeah, and he was. Well, I mean, they say he was endowed. I really don't know, but that's what they said. Yeah, but
Well, how did he fit it in the hole of the beer can if he was so endowed?
What's up
yeah,
with that?
so,
Yeah, really, what's up with that?
And then I had my son working there, and my son was working there. I had my brother there. In fact, my brother once he called him in the kitchen, and he had pizza with Sinatra in the kitchen. Yeah, Sinatra was a good guy, really. And my youngest son worked there too, and he never saw Sinatra perform. So he talked to the secretary. They sent him down to Atlantic City, and they made him sit with Sinatra's wife, Barbara. So my son was, and he's a big fan of Sinatra. And I also had him with Barbara Streisand. He was a big Streisand fan. So yeah,
she used to live on Central Park West. I don't know if she still does, but I used
Who's
to
that?
see her. Barbara Streisand.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. She was doing the movie Nuts, and we were her security for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey Joe, was he drunk, Sinatra, when that happened, or he was just incoherent?
No, I think he was losing it. It was towards the end of his career.
Okay.
He was getting a little senile or whatever.
Maybe a little dementia.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Johnny Fontaine does not get that part.
There we go.
All right. That was supposed to be Sinatra, right?
Yeah. That's
the funny thing is, I actually, when we were allowed to moonlight, I was hired to work security at the Waldorf for Sinatra. And I remember the first time, because I was a big Sinatra fan, and I remember being up on a late tour, and I'm looking under the door, and I could see he's pacing, and I'm saying, wow, I want to see this guy. And all night long, I'm up, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, the door opens, he leans out, gets the newspaper, and he says, "Good morning, kid, how are you?" And I said, oh my God, it was like the Hallelujah chorus. God came out. That's how much I adored the man.
He was also a pretty good actor, too.
He was. Yeah. And later years, when I was with Telly, I remember being in the at the casino with Telly and Frank, Mr. Sinatra. I never called him Frank. Anyway, Mr. Sinatra and him were playing baccarat, and Vince Conti, who was in the Kojak series, knew them both, of course. And he's talking to Frank and turns over a card. Then the next hand he turns over another card, and he's still talking to him. He says, "Will you get the F out of here?" He says, "You just cost me $10,000." He was paying like $5,000 a card or something. I said, "Oh wow."
Vince Conti, was that the lieutenant?
No. He had a lesser role. No, he was a lesser role. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He played Rizzo in the series.
Rizzo. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was Vince Conti. He actually, they're from Freeport. He was from Freeport, out here. And he became Telly's friend, and Telly took him along. Yeah. So Telly took care of everybody, really, everyone.
Where was Telly originally from? Was he a New York guy?
Yeah. He lived in the Bronx. He lived in on the island. He lived in a few spots, but he was a New York guy. He worked in the UN. I think it was an interpreter or something. And then they were doing a live show on Lucky Luciano, and they needed somebody to play the role, and they didn't have. And they asked him. He did the role, and that was his first role, and became a star after that.
Well, he probably looked more like Italian than Greek, because he was Greek, obviously, right? But
definitely
more Italian. Who Loves You, Baby? Right? That was
that's right. Who Loves
He
You?
had that real natural New York way about him. That's why he did so well.
Oh yeah. Everywhere we went, no matter where, it's Who Loves You, Baby, and kissed him on the hand. I mean, he really schmoozed the woman. They loved him. Everybody loved him. Yeah.
Hey, Joe, I got to ask you a question. There was a detective who's obviously infamous when I say his name, but he had claimed to be involved in a couple of Kojak episodes. Louis Ippolito, sound familiar?
Ippolito. It sounds familiar, but what did he do?
He was one of the mob cops. He was actually later on, after he retired, was arrested and convicted of doing hits for the mafia. But I remember when I was in Brooklyn South in the 6-0 squad, I think he was either in the 6-2 or the 6-3, and we would see him at functions and stuff. And he was talking about Telly Savalas. Remember when they had the show came back after a long hiatus?
Yes, yeah.
And he was telling me about how Telly had problems with his feet, and they had the back of his shoes cut out or something. He had problems with his feet or something.
Yeah,
And
I don't know, because after that I was more or less very busy with my security business, and then I'd fly out to California to meet, just to go out there to maybe go to dinner with Telly and his wife, but I was really busy in New York, but I didn't work in those the shows after the Kojak series.
yeah, this was actually a Kojak series, but it had come back. I guess you might not have been involved in it, but I think
Yeah,
he
I
was.
remember them. Yes.
I think this detective I'm talking about was in a couple of scenes. I thought maybe you would have.
No, I didn't know him. No,
he was a
no.
big blowhard anyhow. So
Angela Ang, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. Thank all of our people that are in the live chat, you Police Off the Cuff fans, Real Crime Stories fans. You're going to see a lot more of Phil Grimaldi, because we're doing a lot of real crime stories together. And we're also trying to have the attorney Joe Murray in as our expert legal counsel on some of these shows. And he never met a camera he didn't like either. So, and he's great. He's great on these shows. But we're trying to do some more maybe national shows. And we did a show on Lauren Spear, the girl who was missing for 10 years from Indiana University. It's a real heartbreaking story for her parents. But we're trying to get that case, sort of reignite some interest in that case, and maybe, from shaking a tree, maybe they'll get some more information on it. But
somebody knows something about that young lady.
100% someone does, someone just wrote something, a good book, a good read, so many well-known people and stories you feel like you know them all because you've seen them on TV or in the movies. This is Dave Fisher speaking. And the book is available on Amazon, actually available to order on Amazon. Joe Cirillo, a gentleman, a good cop, and a friend to many, and an actor in so many movies, makes his book all the more interesting. Get the book and enjoy every story Joe has to tell. Thank you, Joe, for all the interesting stories from your service in the from his service in the Korean War to his service in the NYPD to his service drawing naked women, all of that stuff.
That is a great career.
I was just watching The Son of Sam. Did you see that on Netflix?
Yeah.
And it brought back some, and I saw my buddy there. Anyway, when I was going to California, when I, leaving to go with Telly, a laid off cop became a reporter, and he did a big story on me. And it was in, I think, Newsday or somewhere, but it was a nice story. And he met me and he says, Joe, do you mind if I come out to California with you? And I says, oh, Jim, I don't mind. Why not? So he came out with me, and then we were staying together, and then my funds were a little low, and we stayed with a friend of his for 2 weeks. Then we went to the hotel where Telly was living, because Telly had a union problem getting me to work. So I had to wait until that was cleared up before I could work with Telly. So anyway, he's in the room with me every day, and then he's on the phone a lot, and he says, Joe, don't worry, I'll pay the phone bill. I said, okay. So after quite a while, he says to me, Joe, I got to go back to New York. I says, why are you going back? I says, he says, no, I'm going back. I'm going to get arrested. I said, arrested for what? He says, I'm the mystery man. I said, what mystery man? I'm the guy who's got the pictures of David Berkowitz in the cell. I'm the one who's calling. He's on the phone. That's his phone calls to the cop at Kings County. He was getting all the information, feeding them to the newspapers, and they arrested him for that when he got back. And I just saw it on Son of Sam, one of the episodes. Wow, so here I am. I said today they probably arrest me for harboring a criminal. Here he is in my room.
Joe,
he showed me a paper with David Berkowitz's signature on it. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Crazy.
Joe, you know something? We should probably have you back on one time, but we're coming up on a very close to an hour, and we usually don't like to go beyond an hour because we don't want to tempt our fans. But I just want to thank you for coming on. It's such a refreshing hearing all your great stories. And I want to put up the screen. I want to put your book on so people know where. There's the book, Joe Cirillo, An Offer I Couldn't Refuse, from the NYPD to Hollywood. You can get it on Amazon. He's got some really unbelievably interesting stories in his book. And, go on Amazon, order the damn book, read it at home, enjoy some of these stories. They're really great stories, and I think you'll love them. Phil, got any last words?
Oh, yes, I do. Real quick. Joe, you have no idea what a pleasure this was for me because growing
my
up as a kid, no, I got to tell you, growing up as a kid, I watched Kojak religiously. French Connection was my favorite movie. That's what made me aspire to be a detective in the NYPD, and I accomplished that. And The Godfather, all the things that we talked about was just part of my youth. And it was just great talking about it with you. And I can't tell you what a thrill it is and being part of this
it was my
podcast.
pleasure. Believe me, I love talking about it. So.
Thank you very much. I really thank you.
Guys. Thank you, Bill.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Joe, if you have any last words, you want to shout out to anyone, this is your last 30 seconds to do it.
Well, thank you for the big plug. I never pay agents 10%, though. I have to pay you 10% now.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Book.
You don't have to
thank
do
you
that.
so much, both of you. I really enjoyed this.
Okay,
really
great.
enjoyed it.
On behalf of Police Off the Cuff, Phil Grimaldi, and we'd like to thank Joe Cirillo for coming on the show. He was a fantastic guest. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Stay safe.
Good night now.